Hey guys, checking out Avengers 14 as we get closer and closer to the War of the Realms. But before we get started, make sure you click subscribe so you're not missing out on any of this content as we roll it out here on the channel. Since I haven't done a bunch of Avengers on the channel, guys, make sure if you have any questions, just ask me in the comments. I'll get back with you pretty quick and let you know what's really going on with it. But what the storyline starts out with is the vampires across the world are in a vampire civil war. Dracula is on one side, and then you have the Shadow Colonel on the other side. The Shadow Colonel's a dumb name. I just got to come out and say it. It seems nearly impossible to remember. It's nobody in the military would be like, my name is the Shadow Colonel. It just doesn't work. But back to the actual Civil War part of it. And it's pretty interesting watching this go down. It's talking about the brutality and everything that happened here, where they're actually strapping rats with sunburst grenades and sending them into the corridors and stuff and exploding them. This faction is just running through Dracula, who Dracula in the Marvel universe is a big deal. He's somebody that the only reason he's not more of a threat is because he doesn't want to be more of a threat. He's always been extremely powerful in Marvel Comics. But as the Shadow Colonel and his army rolls through Romania, and they roll through the castle of Dracula, they realize real quickly that he's gone. From there we go and we meet up with the newest Avenger, and that is Blade. And Blade joined the Avengers recently after he was rescued by the Wasp from one of Dracula's castles, where he had been captured. And in case you're wondering, what the heck, why are we dealing with vampires all of a sudden? Well, it goes back to a conversation between Black Panther and Odin, where with the War of the Realms on the horizon, they don't know who's siding with Marquez and who's not. And Odin fears that the new... But back to the vampires have actually hijacked a Roxxon air flight 959. Don't know why I'm telling you the number, not that it matters, but hey, I'm telling you anyways. But you have Blade and Captain Marvel on board, and they are fighting off these vampires. But as Blade is attacking these vampires and they're attacking back, they're actually telling him, we have nowhere to go, we have nowhere to run, because do you know what is pursuing us? This Shadow Colonel? They are scared to death of him. And then after that, you got a couple pages of Blade kicking around some vampires, calling them Suckface or Suckhead, or I don't know, whatever. It's Blade throwing bows and whipping people with silver nunchucks and stuff. From there, we go to Wakanda, where we find out that the Black Panther has a bit of a vampire problem. And apparently, he says that the way they got into Wakanda is that they turned into snakes and slithered through the sewers. And they're after, of course, vibranium. Well, as this horde charges at the Black Panther and Tony Stark, T'Challa tries to reason with him, tries to tell him, look, we have blood banks available, our synthetic blood bank, we can feed you. We can actually work towards a cure for you, and they aren't hearing it. And Tony Stark just has to finally open up on them. And then there's an internal monologue between Tony Stark. He's basically saying, look, these guys, they're monsters, but at one point they were humans. So they're still humans. They're deformed, but they were once men like us. And each one that we successfully kill, it counts as a failure because we couldn't save them. From there we go to Central Romania, where you have Captain America and Thor, and they are dealing with the immediate fallout of the vampires' castles being destroyed, and the vampires are flocking out into the surrounding areas and wreaking complete havoc. Well, Captain America is doing the right thing. He's getting everybody to church and sealing it up and letting the vampires know, look, you have one option here, and that's turn around. And because if not, you're gonna bite off a little more than you can chew. So while Cap and Thor are doing their thing, and Tony and T'Challa are doing theirs, in the monster metropolis, which is an area, a city basically underneath Manhattan, you have She-Hulk and Ghost Rider. And they're just rounding up vampires and stuffing them into the trunk of the car, which is actually, I think, a gateway to hell. But during all this going on, suddenly you have this little hooded demon kid walking up, telling Ghost Rider, "Hey, Roberto Reyes, you're not an Avenger. You're vengeance itself." And he doesn't know what to think. And this little dude just tells him, "Hey, look, the Avengers will eventually see what you really are, and you're a monster. You're the biggest monster that ever was or will be." Roberto Reyes starts to defend himself when She-Hulk walks up and says, "Hey, who are you talking to?" And, well, then they do the fastball special using Ghost Rider in the car. And it's a bunch of fun. Jumping back to Cap and Thor, they're doing their thing when suddenly all of the vampires start flipping out because they smell something. And they get this look of terror in their eyes, and they run away, and it's because it's the Shadow Colonel. And his dog, Sarge, which you don't typically want to use that term. It's not appropriate. Well, the Colonel walks up, and he basically says, "Look, we can settle this. I can solve all your problems. I just need to know one thing, and that's where is Dracula." Well, they decide to take him back to Avengers Mountain, which is an old celestial that they've hollowed out and are using for a base. And they decide that it's going to be a good idea to send in Blade after him. Which, if you're going to send in somebody to talk to a vampire, why not send in the Daywalker who gets along really well with vampires, right? Well, the Colonel goads him into basically roughing him up a little bit, and everybody's trying to figure out what is really going on when they kind of realize that the Shadow Colonel wanted to be brought here. And now, while this is going on, Ghost Rider's having a little bit of a fit here. He is he's like a teenager. He's seriously in high school, and suddenly he's sitting there. He's kind of throwing a fit at the car, saying, "Hey, what am I? What is going on? What's with this ghost dog thing that's supposed to know things? And there's a talking gorilla, and I don't understand what's going on." Well, while he's sitting there, the lights go out, and somebody says, "Ghost Rider." Well, as this individual starts talking, Ghost Rider bursts into flames, and it's not the usual thing. He says it hurts a lot more. And the guy says, "In the name of Mephisto, in the name of Lord Marduk, the Morning Star." And he keeps going on. At the same time, Colonel Shadow Lord guy, he headbutts Blade, starts roughing him up. It starts telling him, "I am the new Lord of the Vampires. Either you are with me or you're not. And let me save you the trouble of deciding, Daywalker." And he tells him in a very impolite way where he can go. And it's not good. And he also says he knows just the way to get there. And at that point, you switch back over to Ghost Rider, and he's completely engulfed in flames. And finally, the person whoever's saying this to him says, "In the name of vengeance, I invoke thee." And he completely bursts into flames, and this absolute amazing picture. And you have, it's actually the dog, the guy he called Sarge earlier, who is the one invoking this curse on him. From there you go to the Winter Guard, and the Winter Guard is basically the Russian version of the Avengers. And they're actually pulling, of all things, guard duty. They're standing there when suddenly they spot something. So they immediately rush out to it to see what it is, and it's Dracula. It is Count Dracula, and he is requesting asylum in Russia. He is asking for the Russian government to protect him and allow him basically entrance into Russia. So overall, this is a pretty good book. Shadow Colonel, other than, I mean, cool concept other than the name. Or is it Colonel Shadow, Shadow Colonel, whatever. Interested to see who's pulling the strings here with between him and Sarge, and what's going to happen in the next issue. It looks like they're trying to exploit the Spirit of Vengeance and use Ghost Rider as a weapon against the Avengers. If that's the case, that's going to be very interesting. But honestly, I think it'll be a huge step in the character building process for Roberto Reyes, because at this point, he's kind of got the big head from the situation with the final host, where he really was key in saving the whole planet. Maybe help him take it a little bit more seriously, realizing that being an Avenger isn't as easy as it looks, or as you get lucky every now and then, and you do get to be the hero. So overall, so far on Jason Aaron's run, we're 14 issues into it, and I'll tell you, I've enjoyed most of it. Even some of the flashback to the 1 million BC stuff is okay. Some of the, where we come from, and, we were celestial vomit or whatever. You'll have to go back and check out the first few issues. But it was very annoying to me. But I think the overall, it's been a fun series so far. I do like how Loki was key to getting the group back together, and I like some of the new characters that they brought in. I do have to say the last issue, 13, was not good. It was the one with the original Iron Fist, and I didn't enjoy it. And there were a couple before that where they were building the Agents of Wakanda, where they were okay. The issues were okay, but they weren't. It was building the support staff for the Avengers. It wasn't a book about the Avengers. It was about, oh, hey, here's the guy that's going to help gather information from them. And that was kind of, it was interesting, but it wasn't, I don't think, where it should be to be an Avengers comic book. Overall, this one, though, is interesting. It's good. I like the back and forth with the vampires. The idea of the vampire civil war is interesting. And I'm interested to see where this goes as we build up to the War of the Realms, and how the Avengers are going to be involved there, because Loki got them back together for a reason, and assuming that reason is they're going to be critical in the War of the Realms. But guys, that's all I got for this one. Hope you check this out. Make sure you stop by your local comic shop, pick these up, and any other ones, and hey, make sure you leave some comments below. If you aren't subscribed and you're still listening, please do so. I really appreciate it. And guys, that is all I got. Real Comic Stacks out.